Oh hey, another review so soon after the RE4R review. Well then, let's do this. Hey everyone, Alchemist here, back with a new review. Anyway, Mega Man, the Capcom franchise known for its fun games, interesting story and characters, and being stuck in limbo while Capcom gaslights its fans when talking about the Blue Bomber during investor meetings. And while Capcom continues to lie about how to develop the franchise further, we have fans to fill in for Capcom's incompetence thanks to spiritual successors. One such spiritual successor is the Azure Striker Gunvolt franchise, but we're not here to talk about Gunvolt. I was originally going to review the mainline Gunvolt trilogy, but with the possibility of extra content coming to the new Trilogy Enhanced collection, a collection of the mainline trilogy with various gameplay enhancements, I'm putting that review on hold and reviewing a completely different Mega Man spiritual successor called Gravity Circuit. I originally played the demo back in 2023 and really enjoyed the game, and now 2 years later after the full game's release, I finally got it during the Steam summer sale, played through it, got all the achievements, and now here we are with me wanting to review the game. So with that being said, let's do this. I'm Alchemist and this is my review of Gravity Circuit. The story of Gravity Circuit is set in what's basically a version of Earth where there are no humans, only robots that can think and act for themselves like humans. Kind of like the Reploids from the Mega Man franchise. Several years before the events of the game, a massive structure was dug up that people dubbed the Ark, and then suddenly a group of evil bots called the Virus Army began to cause havoc. That is, until a group was formed to fend off the Virus Army known as the Guardian Corps. The members of the Guardian Corps, 9 powerful bots known as the Circuits, fought off the Virus Army and restored peace to the city. However, after the conflict, only one circuit was recovered. Several years go by and suddenly the Virus Army has mysteriously returned, and at the same time the recovered circuit comes back online and springs into action to help the innocent, that being the titular Gravity Circuit known as Kai. Kai makes his way to the HQ of the Guardian Corps, fighting off the Virus Army along his way and helping out a robed bot who gives him the game's first burst technique as thanks. I'll go over these later on in the video, but anyway, Kai reaches the HQ and spots one of his comrades, the Power Circuit Cable, who sends a giant automated tank to fight Kai as he retreats, with Kai defeating the tank and making his way into the HQ. Once inside, the new leader of the Corps, Colonel, introduces himself. He's unaware why Cable was trying to kill him following the Virus Army's return decades after their initial defeat, since the Corps thought that the other circuits went offline as they were only able to retrieve Kai's body post-Virus War, and Kai is suffering from a case of amnesia and can't shed some light on the situation because of said amnesia. While trying to figure out why the Virus Army is acting so coordinated now, the robot bot from the intro stage shows up and explains that the Virus Army is following the orders of the now rebelling circuits and introduces himself as Nega. After Nega sheds some light on the situation, Kai makes it his duty as the only circuit on the Corps' side to stop his former comrades before they can cause havoc within the city. And into the action we go as we have 8 stages to tackle, each ending with a fight against one of the rebelling circuits. These stages consist of a Steelworks ending with a fight against Ray, the Optic Circuit, a Junkyard ending with a fight against Trace, the Patch Circuit, the Mountains ending with a fight against Blade, the Cooling Circuit, a Power Plant that ends with a fight against Cable, the Highway ending with a fight against Bit, the Shift Circuit, the City Center ending with a fight against Melody, the Wave Circuit, the City Mines ending with a fight against Crash, the Brake Circuit, and finally Cyberspace ending with a fight against Hash, the Cypher Circuit. Once all the Rebel circuits have been dealt with and stored away in the HQ's vault, Colonel suddenly goes berserk and attacks the Guardian Corps HQ and takes off with the Rebel circuits, with Nega following after him. Kai gets back and sees the havoc caused by Colonel before Colonel's assistant Pat informs Kai of what happened and that the two have gone to the Ark, which is also the origin of the Virus Army. And as the only one capable of putting an end to the Virus Army, Kai decides to head there himself and end things once and for all. Kai battles his way through the Virus Army forces pauses until he reaches a room and spots Nega. Nega asks how Kai's body is doing, and Kai asks what Nega means by that. And that's when Nega reveals what he looks like underneath the robe, a robot with a similar look to Kai himself. Kai demands to know who he is, and Nega reveals that he is the original Gravity Circuit, or more accurately, one of its previous hosts. He explains that while the other circuits are more passive when it comes to obtaining a new host after the previous one dies, the Gravity Circuit desires for a new host after the previous one dies and seeks out a new host to ensure someone is always using it, as Nega puts it. And that's when its namesake power of gravity comes in, as it uses gravity to pull in the needed materials to make a new host, even latching onto an innocent bot altogether in most cases, like what happened with Kai as we see in the following cutscene. As after the first Virus War conflict, Nega ran out of energy to send the copy command and transfer his memories to the Gravity Circuit's next host, and because of that the circuit thought that Nega had died. That's when an innocent bot was passing by, and the Gravity Circuit latched onto said passing bot, causing the bot to become Kai and thus the new host of the Gravity Circuit. And the copy command not being ran is why Kai has amnesia, because without the command the circuit won't carry the memories of the previous host. Nega then explains that there's an even greater threat that exists further into the arc and is the source of the Virus Army, and that his signal reawakened the circuits around the time the Virus Army came back and the events of the game started, which is also what caused Kai to spring into action. And in order to see if Kai is ready to face the threat ahead, Nega fights Kai one-on-one, with Kai coming out on top and returning to base before continuing ahead, with Nega saying he'll be fine for the time being. So Kai continues going deeper into the arc and eventually sees Colonel fall into a room below before fighting the Circuit Crystal, which also serves as the game's boss rush, as when you get the Circuit Crystal down to its last unit of health, it forces you to fight against one of the circuits until you beat that circuit and repeat the process until the Circuit Crystal is finally destroyed. After fighting the Circuit Crystal, Kai continues heading deeper into the arc with assistance from Nega until Kai reaches Colonel and the threat that Nega mentioned, the Commander Circuit, or simply Commander. We then get this very long exposition dump about how the circuits used to travel to different planets via the arc and conquer them for their masters. But when they arrived on the planet the game takes place on, the other 9 circuits wanted to stay and abandon their mission, burying Commander along with the arc and protecting the common bots from the Virus Army as the Guardian Corps. And while Commander was able to secure 8 of the circuits after the first Virus War, he was unable to get the Gravity Circuit due to its ability to make a new host to ensure it keeps getting used, and eventually ran out of Virus Army soldiers to send after the Gravity Circuit, and Commander brainwashed the other circuits to fight on his side as he was rebuilding his army to once again attack the city. And even though the circuits failed to capture Kai, Commander was still able to lure him in by controlling Colonel, and now that all the circuits are aboard the Ark can now take off into space, which will cause all the common bots to deactivate and await the arrival of the Masters, since the Ark emits a planet-wide signal that keeps the common bots active, and without it they will go into sleep mode. Kai doesn't want this, however, and is ready to stop Commander, but Commander forces Kai to fight Colonel while Commander gets ready to fly the Ark off into the cosmos, with Kai defeating Colonel, who thanks Kai for stopping him and asks Kai to stop Commander before blowing up. Commander then proceeds to fight Kai, but Kai is pissed and is like, "Nah fam, you're going down," and proceeds to fold Commander up like laundry and destroy him before Commander can fly the Ark away from the planet. Nega then approaches Kai and decides to become the new Commander Circuit, as the planet-wide signal will shut down if someone isn't using the circuit's power. Kai asks about the Gravity Circuit and Nega tells Kai to keep it, saying that he's earned it before Kai leaves, and Nega, now the new Commander Circuit, puts the Ark back into its place, with Kai watching from afar as he's greeted by Pat and all the bots that Kai rescued throughout the game. Pat congratulates Kai on stopping whatever happened, and the game cuts to the credits. We then get a post-credit scene of Kai and Pat visiting Nega after he takes on the role of Commander Circuit, and that a statue of Colonel has been built to honor him. And that's the story of Gravity Circuit, and it's pretty basic all things considered. The story is very similar to X1's story with a sprinkle of 01's story thrown in. You have the robots who act near identical to humans like the Reploids. The main protagonist awakens from a catatonic state like Zero does in 01. The bosses are all the protag's former allies like in X1. You have a fight with a different robot before the final boss fight at the end of the game like X1. The final boss is the protag's former boss, who's also a giant head with hands that you use as platforms like the second Sigma fight in X1, and the game ends with the protagonist staring at the area of the game's finale from a cliff top, just like in X1. There's nothing wrong with this, but the similarities are noticeable. As for the characters, they're alright. Kai definitely gets the most attention. He is the protagonist after all. He kind of feels like a mix of X and Zero to me, though he feels more like Zero in personality than X, if that makes sense, especially given the amnesia thing. Nega also gets a decent amount of attention as well, but it's more so towards the end of the game as Kai starts making his way through the arc. Other than that, he serves as the exposition man, elaborating on plot details and giving insight to the other circuits once you defeat them and talk to Nega back at HQ. He's a good character, but I wish he did more for the story other than explain stuff. I also wish he was playable, maybe after you beat the game, but the most you get is a palette chip that you can get in New Game Plus. More on that later. As for the sidecasts, they get barely any development unless it's Colonel, Pat, or the circuits, and they don't really get any development outside of one or two scenes like their introduction cutscene, for example, or their flavor text in the game's research compendium. I wish the game spent more time on them, but honestly, you don't interact with them outside of the ones you buy stuff from or interact with for achievements. Still, it would have been nice if there was more reason to interact with them besides seeing what they have to say and getting their data chips for the research compendium. The game also looks pretty solid. I love the pixel art style and how it's aesthetically similar to the Mega Man Extreme duology on the Game Boy Color. Just way more detailed than what those games could do since Gravity Circuit was released for significantly more powerful hardware. And I can already hear what some of my college classmates are thinking if they're watching this. This looks like a Mega Man ripoff. This looks like a Gundam ripoff. Another niche thing I'm really into looks like a ripoff of this other way more popular thing.
Shut your fucking mouth! No problem, John. Shut the fuck up, you.
Anyway, as for gameplay, it's pretty solid. Kai doesn't shoot, well, technically, and instead his main form of attacks are punches and kicks. Much like Zero, Kai's gameplay is all about getting up close and personal with his enemies as you deal a series of blows until the enemy is defeated, indicated with their sprite turning grey. Another form of attack that Kai can do is his grapple hook, which acts similar to the chain rod from Zero 2. With it, you can attack enemies from afar across pits and hazards like lava, and something you can do that Zero can't do with the chain rod is grab defeated enemies to throw like a projectile. I love this. It's another great option in tackling enemies from afar. This also extends to certain projectiles, like the bombs and missiles that are fired by the big cylinder enemies that usually guard the entrance to the stage's boss arena, and you can angle the throw of the projectiles so it can hit where you're trying to hit. Kai can also crouch and slide, which helps with clearing small paths, though there's more to Kai's moveset than what I've already mentioned, as Kai has access to enhancement chips and burst techniques. Enhancement chips are passive abilities you buy from the Nurse Bot in the Guardian Core HQ medbay, and range from things like a double jump, taking less damage from hazards, or being invincible while sliding. These cost varying amounts of bits, the game's currency, but you also need to save a certain amount of civilians that are scattered across the 8 main stages, each stage having 8 civilian bots to rescue. 2 of them are also dogs, and yes, you can pet them once rescued. I only stuck to 3 enhancement chips throughout my playthrough, those being the one you get at the start of the game where you can gain burst energy for burst techniques by attacking enemies, the double jump, and the slide invincibility. Then there's burst techniques. These essentially act as super moves. You can equip up to 4 and assign them to pressing the burst technique button on its own or by holding down a direction, much like the specials in Smash Bros. You buy these from Nega and you can buy 4 at the start, but 2 get added to the catalog with each circuit you defeat. And when Nega leaves for the arc during the game's finale, you buy these from the nurse bot instead. Burst techniques can range from lunging at an enemy to deliver a powerful strike to healing and even variations of boss attacks, and these are pretty powerful as they can one-shot most foes. Using a burst technique will use up a point from the burst gauge. You start with 2 points, but you can find upgrades that triple the amount of points you have for the burst gauge. You can also get health upgrades much like you do in the X series, with getting them all doubling Kai's total health. But there's one more type of upgrade that you can get, and those are pallet chips. So in the Guardian Core HQ, there's a painter bot called Prim that you can interact with, and there are these collectibles that you can collect called pallet chips that Prim can then use to create pallet swaps for Kai that grant different passive abilities. The one I stuck with for my initial playthrough is the one you get in the mountain stage that gives you the ability to use the slide as an air dash, which made for a great addition to Kai's movement. The best of these palette swaps though is the ultimate blend. You get this by beating the boss rematches you can do in the Guardian Core HQ, and it gives you the passive ability of every other palette chip in the game. It's awesome. There's also a palette chip you can get in the first arc stage on New Game Plus that gives you a palette swap that lets the player use some of the moves Nega uses in his boss fight. Speaking of New Game Plus, when you beat the game for the very first time, you'll unlock 3 modes: New Game Plus, Circuit Mode, and Speedrun Mode. New Game Plus and Speedrun Mode are self-explanatory. New Game Plus lets you replay the game with all of your collectibles carried over. Palette chips, health and burst gauge upgrades, research compendium progress, bot enhancement chips and burst techniques, and rescued civilians, allowing you to replay the game and collect anything you missed out on. And Speedrun Mode is just you trying to beat the game as fast as possible. But then there's the third mode, Circuit Mode. Circuit Mode sets you to the minimum burst gauge regardless of if you have burst gauge upgrades or not, and now you can use health to pull off burst techniques. But I think you can regain that health back if the burst technique hits an enemy. I'm not entirely sure. After beating the game for the first time, you can also play the game with different modifiers, such as a permadeath mode, having to beat the stage from start to finish without dying, to completely changing the level layout and giving the bosses harder patterns and new attacks. I did a Circuit Mode Plus playthrough with the remixed level layouts and tougher bosses to get footage of all 3 of those things at once. And I had fun just speeding through the levels and basically melting the boss's health in mere seconds by comboing the clone array burst technique into surface render. It's fun just seeing the boss be dealt with so quickly. Well, except Bit, because he's always moving around the arena and I can't get in the damage I want to do against him. In conclusion, fuck Bit. All my homies hate Bit. But in the end, Gravity Circuit is a fun spiritual successor to the Mega Man franchise that I highly recommend to anyone who's craving something with the feel of a Mega Man game while Capcom fumbles the bag regarding the Blue Bomber. Which is funny to say because they announced a Star Force Legacy collection and crossover DLC for Sonic Racing Cross Worlds as I'm working on this video, but whatever. But anyway, I'm Alchemist and this has been my review of Gravity Circuit. Take care everyone.